Hi, this is Dr. Eddie Morgan over at Clovis East High School, ready to help you with your homework tonight. We're looking at worksheet 6.5. This is the homework help, so every problem on this homework help mirrors the exact problem on your homework. If you have a problem with just one question, you might want to fast forward to that question, and we should be able to help you out. So let's get started. Our first problem involves this following two-way frequency table. It shows the number of freshmen boys and girls who play sports and don't play sports. So you notice it's two ways because I have two categories here. I have it is either a boy or a girl, or do they play a sport or not play a sport. So it's two-way. If we wanted just a frequency, for example, if we wanted the frequency of boys who play a sport, we would go boys, sports, and our answer would be 78. In our case, however, and we call that a joint frequency, because when you have a joint, you're putting two things together, so you have two categories. Okay? So everything in, if I were to do this in blue, all four of these boxes here, you see, describe joint frequencies. 78 boys who play a sport, 82 boys don't play a sport, 46 girls who play a sport, 114 girls who don't play a sport. So each of them have two. When we go to our homework, though, it asks for our marginal. Now, marginal frequency, two ways to think about this. One way is to think about the margins. They're the numbers in the margins of my total, and they only represent one data item. Okay, so marginal means I'm just looking at one data item. So when they say, what's the marginal frequency of freshmen who play a sport, all I'm interested in is who plays a sport? Oh, 124. So there's 124 students, boys and girls, who play a sport. Likewise, the marginal frequency of freshmen who were girls, now I'm just looking at the girl total, and I only want the margin, so my answer is 160. Okay, so there's my marginal for that, and there's my marginal for that one. So marginal frequencies are the ones in the margins. They only give you one piece of information. Joint frequency would be in the middle here because they give you two things, boys who play a sport, etc. The next two problems use the same table. This time we're looking for the joint relative frequency of girls who play a sport. I told you earlier that a joint frequency means it's going to give me two pieces of data. In this case, girls who play a sport. So girls who play a sport, 46. The joint frequency is 46. This time, however, they want the relative, joint relative. Relative means it's related to something, and we're going to compare it. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare to the grand total. Well, the grand total of boys and girls and freshmen is 320. So what I'm looking at for joint frequency is 46. Joint relative frequency is 46 compared to 320. And when I do that on my calculator, I get 14375, or I can round off to 0.144, which tells me that about 14% of the total freshmen are girls who like to play sports. We look at number 4 again. I want joint relative frequency of boys who do not play a sport. So in this case, boys who don't play sports is going to be 82. That's my joint frequency, but my relative compares it to the total. So once again, 82 compared to 320 is 0.25625, or I'll round off to 0.256. So the total freshman class, a little more than a fourth of them, 25%, are boys who don't play sports. Problem 5 is a vocabulary question. It asks which type of frequency is found by dividing the joint frequency by the frequencies row total or column total. All right. We noticed above, we had joint relative frequency. And we found that by taking the frequency and dividing by the grand total. However, in this case, we're not dividing by the grand total. We're dividing by the row column. So that's the biggest hint. We're not dividing by the grand total, but by the frequency. So we're just looking at that compared to, like in that one example, we might be looking for what's the frequency of boys who don't play a sport given that he's a boy. In other words, what we're going to do is we're going to divide that, and that particular one is called the conditional relative frequency. Condition meaning you're just looking at one row or just one total. It's usually, you look for the condition is usually when it says given that condition implies either one row or one column. And so when you have a conditional frequency, you're going to take your frequency and divide it by that row total or that column total. What's the difference between joint frequency and marginal frequency? Remember, in a standard table, we might, let me just make up something. We have boy, girl, action, comedy, okay? When we talk about frequency, we're talking about these four categories here. Okay, how many, 20 boys, 30 boys, 25, 15, that kind of thing. How many frequency gives me 2 points of data. So how many boys like action? 20, all right? Marginal, however, only relates to one piece of data, but it's giving you a total. So like if I put a total in here and a total here, now you see the total boys is 50, the total girls is 40, the total people who like action is 45, and the total who like comedy is 45. This, by the way, is my grand total, which is 90. But these here are in the margin. You might say they're in the margin of the table, and they only give you one data. So that's the difference between a frequency, joint frequency, and marginal frequency. And entering the body of the table is a joint frequency. This is the body. And entering the total row or the total column is the marginal frequency. Problem 7, we're going to make our own frequency table. It says it has 350 males and females, whether their favorite music was country, hip-hop, or rock. All right. So first of all, it's told me that I have total number of people surveyed is 350, so I'll write that in. Of the 153 males, that means there's 153 men, 31 like country best. So 31 men like country. And 42 preferred rock. Okay. Of the 197 females, so there's 197 females. Notice these add up 7 and 10, 15, 30, so that checks out. But of these 197, 59 named hip hop. And a total of 95 people said country was their favorite. So down here, country is going to be 95. So notice I filled in the table with the numbers they've given me, and now I just need to use a little math to figure out what the other numbers are. So if I add up 31 and 42, I get 73, and if I subtract that from 153, I find out that this has to be 80. Notice this row has to add up to 153. Here, 95 minus 31 is going to give me 64. These two just simply add up 139. And then here I can either add this way. So 197 minus 64 minus 59 is going to be 74. And then add these together, 116. And now if I add these three here, they should add up to 350. And if they do, I know I've entered that correctly. In problem 8, we're going to take the same results from 7. So I'll post them right here. And we're going to take every one of these numbers and simply divide it by the grand total. That gives us the relative frequency. So let's start here. 31 divided by 350, and that's going to give me 9 hundredths. 80 divided by 350, and that's going to give me 23 hundredths. 42 divided by 350, and that's going to give me 12 hundredths. Start with the females here. 64 all being divided by the grand total is going to be 1800s, and then 59 divided by 350 is going to give me 1700s, and finally 74 divided by 350 is going to give me 2100s. Those would be the joint relative frequencies. The marginal relative frequencies, now I just take my margins and do the same thing. So down here, I'm going to have 95 divided by 350 is going to be 27. Notice that these percentages do add up. 139 divided by 350 is going to be 40 hundredths. And rock, 116 divided by 350 is going to be 33 hundredths. And each of these columns total up, so I know I'm doing a pretty good job here. And now here, 153 for this total. Again, marginal frequencies of the rows here. That's going to be 44 hundredths. And then 197 divided by 350 is going to be 56 hundredths. And of course, 350 divided by 350, that's going to equal my 1. Notice that these frequencies will all add up, rows and columns again, but these are the relative frequency. You're taking every frequency or marginal frequency and dividing it by the grand total. And now, having completed that table, we're going to ask a few questions. What's the joint relative frequency males who like country music? So males who like country music, right there, 0.09, that's our answer. On the other hand, what's the marginal relative frequency of males surveyed? That again is going to be a total of my males. So I'm looking over here at the total of the column, and that's going to be 0.44, and I can just look that up in my column there. Marginal in the margin, only talking about men. Joint relative frequency, men and country, and that's our relative frequencies. Our last three problems have to do with conditional relative frequency. That means there's going to be a condition, and it's always with this given that. And see, given that like a person like country best. What that means is I'm going to look up here and I'm going to pretend that the only thing that's important is people who like country. I don't care about the other columns. So given that they're in this column, what's the conditional relative frequency that the person was female? Well, the number of people female is 118, and this time, because I'm only looking at country, I'm going to divide it by, in this case, let me erase this for a moment. In this case, I'm going to look up here, and I have 64 females, but now I'm only going to divide it by the total of people who like country. So 64 over 95 is going to be 0. On my calculator, 636842, on, and I will simply round that off to about 67. So about 2/3, when it comes to country music, 2/3 of the people who like country music are female. All right? So now what's the conditional relative frequency that a person was female again, given that they liked hip-hop best? So this time I'm only going to look at the hip-hop column. And again, I'm only looking for females right here. So notice the number of females was 59. Out of the total liked hip-hop, 139. So 59 divided by 139 is 0.424460 on my calculator. And we'll round that off to about 42. So when it comes to country, a lot of females like country, but when it comes to hip-hop, the numbers of females drop down to 42%, so a few more males prefer that. Now we go to the last one. What's the conditional relative frequency that a person female was female again, given that they like rock? So this time we're going to look at the rock category, and again, just look at the females. So in this category, 74 females out of the total 116. That gives me 0.63793, or approximately 0.64. So again, there's a significant number of women who like rock and country, less when it comes to hip-hop. And that's your homework for tonight. I hope it helped you out.